I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into a gripping political novel that explores the crises and dysfunctions facing the United States and the world. The name of the book, Inheritance of Crises and Dysfunction, and it's written by a terrific author, one of my favorite guests. His name is James Maiwurm. It follows a protagonist by the name of Salt Pepper, a retired government insider who is pulled back into the heart of international diplomacy and high-stakes negotiations. With a story rooted in history, current events, and the complexities of human nature, this novel offers a fascinating look at power, leadership, and the urgent need for solutions in a divided world. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us once again here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below the interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. James, great to have you back on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Talking about crises and dysfunction, there seems to be a lot of it in DC. Government is as divided as ever. Right now, the Republicans have the power after not being in power for 4 years. How do you see this transition going so far?
Well, I think I would say it's a little rocky, to put it mildly. You expect transitions to have rocky spots. That's not unusual, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that the Biden administration wasn't helpful or that the Trump administration wasn't willing to take advice. But what you're facing is a host of things that have been brought down on the Capitol and the various functions that are carried out there, but also all around the world and all around our Army, Navy, and Marines bases. And the world has literally turned upside down for the people that are involved in those manifold and very important types of things. And it's you can't really even think about what's going on here rationally because it involves everybody. Here in Washington, I live in the Washington, D.C. area, but you can imagine what life is like right here now because everybody who works for the government, and that's a lot of people, is worried, on edge, wondering what's going to happen, not sure that what they're hearing today is going to be the story tomorrow, wondering what policies are going to be over the top and be winners. And then there are going to be other policies and practices and the emphases that are going to be different. So it's like a giant slot ball. It's sort of like a ping pong game, I guess. You're going to go bounce around the table, and it's going to be hard to follow the moving ball for a while.
Exactly, exactly. A big change in Washington are these executive orders that presidents issue. They used to do it kind of sparingly. Now, a dozen or so or more executive orders seem to be issued every day. So that's almost a new change in government, don't you think, these executive orders?
I think that's one of the questions that's out there, Lincoln. What to what extent are these executive orders valid? Where do you cross the line where it goes into invalid? And what are the courts going to interfere with or not interfere with? And what is Congress going to jump up and down about if they ever jump up and down?
Yeah.
And right now, you're in a situation where you have to say Congress is, I think, trying to feel its way. You talk about something that happens every time there's a new president, but think about the turnover in both approach and knowledge and background that we have in our officers in the cabinet.
Yeah.
It's a much different crowd, and maybe they'll be good, maybe they won't be good. We don't know yet, but we know it's going to be different. And the source of that difference is going to be things that are determined both in Washington and locally. But I think Washington, as we can see today, is going to have a significant role in figuring out what's happening in the world and in the country going forward. For example, I'll be quiet, but just today, the vice president was talking at a defense powwow in Europe, and was talking really way beyond where people have gone before in terms of Europe's need to step up. Now, that's not a new issue, but
Mhm.
this is to a new level of concern manufacturing. And so I think if you measure to the comfort zone of our European allies, the comfort zone got smaller this week, not
Mhm.
bigger.
Yeah.
And well, I could go on, but you understand what we're talking about, and I'm sure your viewers do too.
Yeah, yeah. Also interesting about the new administration is his cabinet and the people surrounding him are much different than the picks of past presidents. You know, we have a former Fox News host and soldier as the defense secretary. We have the son of a slain presidential candidate, the health and human services secretary. We have Elon Musk in a new role, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and he's apparently an unpaid consultant. What do you make of the people surrounding our new president?
Well, I think you need to be a little bit worried about that. And I'm not, again, I'm being careful with my words in some respects, in the sense that I don't assume that people go into positions like that in bad faith, because
Mhm.
if you did it in bad faith, you'd be crazy. It's too
Mhm.
hard a job. But on the other hand, we don't have. Let's put it this way: this is not the all-star cabinet, uh,
Mhm.
and there are some very good people. But we are offsetting the addition of a few good people into the cabinet with the subtraction of a huge number of people out
Mhm.
of the administrative offices of the government. And I know from experience dealing with things in Washington from time to time that some of the best people in Washington who do very tough jobs, technically uh, sustaining from the standpoint of the country, but also technically challenging from the standpoint of the position. These are important positions, and they're
Mhm.
smart people. They're dedicated, and you can talk about fraud, waste, and abuse, and nobody's going to tell you there's none of that. But I'll also tell you there is lack of fraud, there is lack of abuse, and there is plenty of smarts when you need it.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. Today, the news is talking about maybe Russia has been flying Zooms
Mhm.
into
The drones.
drones into Chernobyl.
Mhm.
Well, I was on the board of a DOE contractor that cleaned up that cleaned up the Rocky Flats complex in Colorado. Fiddling with nuclear waste is not a child's play.
Mhm.
Only the best of the best, the best of the best, the best of the best do you want doing that. And you don't want to be traipsing around places that have radioactive plutonium or whatever the substance happens to be,
Mhm.
along with human beings and unguided missiles that may or may not go where they're supposed to go. That's an area where a really high level of expertise is needed, and it commands it calls for it it demands the highest best people we've got, the
Mhm.
best of the brightest, and that's the sort of thing that Russia is going to need if they ever admit they've got a problem. But we're all going to be worried about it because it's going to affect all of us. And that's just an example of one area of high risk and not so much high reward because it's all downside.
Yeah.
And that the Chernobyl activity, I think, is just an example of what's going to be on people's minds in terms of keeping quality people. When you lose those people, they don't grow on trees. And
Mhm.
you have to be careful about what you're up to in terms of diminishing the workforce.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about fraud, waste, and abuse. Yes, you admit it's in government, no doubt, but it's also in the private sector too. You can go into any large corporation, and that's a slush fund for friends, cronies, and so there's waste, fraud, and abuse pretty much in any organization to some level, right?
I think it's hard to escape it, and that doesn't mean that all everything we paint with a brush called fraud, waste, and abuse really is fraud, waste, and abuse. Sometimes it serves a perfectly good and legitimate reason.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the book espouses is that we need to be working more together and less at each other,
Mm.
thinking about how we can collectively solve things as opposed to collectively fight about issues, how we can make progress and not waste our time on things that are never going to get done, or at least they are not a high priority. So I
Yeah.
think this is the same kind of thinking that we need to really endow in our organizations around the world. So this is in the private sector. I mean, of course, now I'm a lawyer, and so there's no fraud, waste, and abuse with lawyers. We all know that, but that's a different story.
Exactly.
That's probably not on your to-do list.
Exactly, exactly. No billable hours being padded, no lunches being taken. Absolutely not, without a doubt. No, there are great people in government, there are great people in the private sectors, and there are great people who are lawyers like yourself, no doubt. And of course, in any barrel, there are some bad apples. Let's talk about your book. It was written a while ago, but it's very, very timely. You were very prescient in writing this book. You open up on Inauguration Day at the beginning of your book. Tell us about it.
Well, that was on purpose, and I was actually, strangely enough, I was concerned as we launched the book and started introducing it to the rest of the world. I was really worried that it was going to become out of date, on the second day it was after it was published. And my concerns, I think, were overblown at that point. But as of today, they're not overblown at all. This is not a book that diminishes in the relevance with the passage of time. If anything, the relevance and the messages are stronger than they were, because what we're trying to sell to people in the best possible way is to say, look, we've got these giant problems. We all know that they're not ill resolute,
Mhm.
but they are not easily resolute. And so, what we want to be able to do is to work with each other on issues like Chernobyl,
Mhm.
like flooding,
Mhm.
like seawater height, like environmental issues, and so those are all things we need to be attending to. But what happens at the beginning of the new administration? Well, we pull out of the Paris peace, the Paris
Climate
climate.
talk. Right.
We say we're going to subtract ourselves from the WHO, the World Health Organization. Uh, that doesn't seem like quite the right approach to life, because it
Mhm.
pushes people away as opposed to inviting them in. And if you've got massive problems, you want to be able to throw massive force at it,
Right.
and be working as teams as opposed to who shot John. And
Yeah.
so I think it's another important element of what we're going through. But what's going on? It's been interesting to watch it from my perspective. Is that the book? If you could change the names to protect the innocent, you could write the same book again.
Yeah.
And it's that's tempting, by the way. But stay tuned.
Would Salt Pepper be offered a 8-month buyout package if he was working today?
Uh, he probably would, because he's already past normal retirement age. So I think he would be offered the package, but he probably wouldn't take it.
Exactly, exactly. Tell us a little bit about your protagonist, Salt Pepper. He is intriguing. Is sort of the last honest man in Washington in a way.
He is, and that's the way we tried to portray him, because he's not salt and pepper. He's every man, right?
Right.
What we're trying to do is say, here's a person with a high level of integrity. He's intellectually curious. He's trying to figure out what to do with the rest of his life. He wants to leave the world better off, when he leaves than when he joined. He doesn't have children, but he worries about the next generation and the generation after that. So he's really uh, he sort of stands for all of us, and we try to learn through his vision what is going on in the world that bothers him. And so we take him to a small town where he grew up. There's a farm where he grew up on, and so he's worried about things like tariffs, just to pull one out of the air. So Salt, leases his farm to a resident of the area, but that guy can't make it because of the impact on wheat and soybeans that what's going to have in terms of the economic regulation of those commodities in the form of various and sundry regulatory things coming out of all kinds of areas of the government. So lots of wanted to use him to introduce problems
Hmm.
and opportunities and to show us how we ought to be thinking above the sky, not below the sky, because we want to keep our heads and our eyes on that that village in the lights that Ronald
Hmm.
Reagan used to talk about, and
Exactly.
better that's a better view than what we're getting today.
Yeah, the shining city on the hill. That's what Reagan talked about. And Mario Cuomo countered at the time that it was a tale of two cities. So there has been division, but compared to what's happening today, it seems like it's child's play. So much of it, I would think, is could be blamed on the media because we've got this Fox News, MSNBC mentality now where everything's a debate. And the reason why they have these debates where everything is polarized is because one, it can be gripping TV. Two, it fills a lot of time because, these news stations are on for 24 hours a day. They don't have the news organization, they don't have the news gatherers to fill the airways with actual news. Instead, they fill it with pundits and talking heads and bloviators. You think that's at the heart of the matter?
I think it's a heart of the matter. I don't think it's the only heart of the matter, but I think it is a heart of the matter. You can compare uh, Huntley and Brinkley, Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
Pick your news person. They all happen to be men, I think, at the point in time.
Yeah.
Not such a good thing, but those people, everybody trusted them.
Right.
Like, whether they were right, wrong, or indifferent, they were trusted. And having trust in your media sources in a day and age like this one is hard because we all know that the internet and its various and sundry wires and tunnels
Mhm.
is full of stuff that is not being printed because it's not worth being printed.
Yeah.
And it's
The
just,
New York
it's
Times is also unrecognizable, speaking about all the news that's fit to print, right?
yeah, what happened there? I mean, and you've got you go back to who the New York Times and the Washington Post has supported or didn't support in the presidential election.
Yeah.
Interesting thing to
But
do.
the editorial page used to be kept separate. And I've been a conservative my whole life for full disclosure, but I used to love reading the New York Times. It really did feel like the paper of record. It no
Well,
longer does. It's filled
it's,
with commentary, between
I
the
agree with that.
lines.
The commentary is at a very high decibel level.
Yeah.
Um, I will though say that there are some pretty smart people and able people in the news. I mean, I'm afraid they'll get a little bit swept up with the current,
Yeah.
and so you have to be careful about that. I mean, being a journalist right now, I think is a very tough job.
Yeah.
Doing what you do is a tough job because to try to keep track of all of these ebbs and flows uh,
Hmm.
daily, if not hourly. You think about what's truth and what's not truth, what's real and what's not real. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. And so what does the average American have? Do you have enough time to spend sorting all of that out? Well,
Right.
that's why you have Fox News, why you have various and sundry good conservative newspapers, Wall Street Journal,
Mhm.
pick your ones that you can tolerate. There are all kinds of ways that news gets transformed into something else.
Yeah.
We all need to recognize that what and what is not.
Yeah. Exactly. Not to sound like Bill Clinton.
Not to sound like no, or even Don Rumsfeld.
Well, Clinton, famously said it depends on what the definition of is. That's why I
Right.
called you on that. Well, this is a wonderful conversation. It's also a wonderful book. If you're interested in this type of political conversation, political debate, political philosophy, you will absolutely love Inheritance of Crises and Dysfunction by James Maiwurm. It follows protagonist Salt Pepper, a retired government insider who is pulled back into the heart of international diplomacy and high stakes negotiations. We can need him right now, as a matter of fact, because all this stuff is happening right now. The story is rooted in history, current events, and the complexities of human nature. It's a novel that offers a fascinating look at power, leadership, and the urgent need for solutions in a divided world. James, thanks so much for joining me here today on
And
Spotlight.
happy birthday, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you as well. God bless you, sir. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.